Hi, everyone, and good evening. My name is Brett McCann. I am the principal at Streetsboro High School. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our class of 2025 incoming freshman parent night. We are excited to get things going and officially welcome our incoming freshman class. I'm sure this has been just a crazy year for all of you, and it has been for all of us at the high school as well. And we're looking forward to hopefully getting started next year with some sense of normalcy. So we're extremely excited to welcome our incoming freshmen, and we want to thank all of you. You know, whether it's your first one and you're trying to figure out how exactly you got to the point where you have a high schooler, or whether it's your third or fourth and it's your last one and you're counting down the days until you become an empty nester. You know, whatever it might be, we appreciate you being here, and there's no doubt that the more involved that you can be in your child's education, the better off that your kiddo is going to be. So thank you so much for joining us. So in addition to just myself, I want to quickly introduce our team to all of you. So like I said, my name is Brett McCann. I'm the principal here at Streetsboro High School. Also with us on this video chat, we have Julie Taylor, who's our assistant principal. And then as well, we have Ira Campbell, who's one of our school counselors for last names A through L. And then Kelly Simmons, our other school counselor, who is last names M through Z. So you're going to hear from all four of us in regards to this presentation and kind of take you through a couple of our goals, which are, the first one kind of talking about graduation. And again, I know that seems very, very far down the road, but we want to kind of talk about what it's going to take to get your students to graduation, because believe it or not, it's going to be here before you know it. So we want to set them up for the best way to be successful. And that starts by talking about it right now. And the second thing is going to be more geared and focused towards next year and what that's going to look like as far as your child goes and as far as their schedule is concerned. So a couple of documents which might be helpful for you. You don't need them, but if you want to take a look at them throughout this presentation and after, those were also included in the email that you were recently sent. So the first one is the 2021-22 curriculum guide. It contains all the course offerings that we have at Streetsboro High School for the upcoming year. Also included in there is a flow chart regarding class offerings and how they correlate with not only high school goals, but post-high school goals. And we're going to go over those in a little bit. And one thing I really want to reiterate to everyone is that if your child doesn't fall exactly where you want them to or where they want to on that flow chart, don't worry about it. It's not something that we have where students are tracked from the second they get into the high school, but it is a good guide and kind of serves as a nice way for you guys to kind of recognize where your son or daughter is at currently, and you know where they are paced to go right now. The second thing is the course selection sheet. The course selection sheet was also shared with all of you, and it was also shared with your students a few weeks back when Miss Simmons and Mr. Campbell were down at the middle school talking to your students about the course selection. So they all have that. A number of them have already turned it in, which is great. Our goal is to have all of the course selection sheets turned in by this Thursday, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But that course selection sheet is a Google form. Once again, that was also emailed to all of you. Please make sure that you're going over this course selection sheet with your kids as well. Again, in order to make sure that your child is set up for the most successful journey possible in their 4 years of high school, it's important that you are a team member in that effort. So once again, we're going to get going here. And if you have any questions, please make sure that you utilize the chat box. The nice thing here is because we have the chat box, if you have a question, you can just type it in at any time. And then what we're going to do, we're going to kind of go through our presentation. And then from there, we'll take any questions you might have at the end. So we'll utilize the chat box as a way to make sure that all questions are answered. So you don't have to worry about potentially raising your hand or not and forgetting, what your question was. If you have a question, throw it in the chat box. We won't answer it right away, but we'll make sure that we get to it at the end. So hopefully all questions are answered. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Campbell, and he's going to talk to us about kind of graduation and starting with the end in mind.
Thanks, Mr. McCann. And I definitely fall in the category of parent who's going, holy cow, how do I have a high schooler? This is the most nerve-wracking presentation I've done just because I kind of see both sides, not just talking about it, but feel like I'm talking to myself about all this, which is really weird. Anyways, when we talk to your students, we talked a little bit about, having their graduation in mind. And I know that seems like we might be rushing things because you might be going, okay, pump the brakes. We're just getting to high school. We're trying to navigate that. And that's true. And we want your students to have a great experience. We want it to be a positive experience. But part of that is really helping them build the foundation that's going to impact them when they're walking that stage, getting that diploma. The two words that they're going to get really sick of hearing Mrs. Simmons and me say are, what's the right fit and what's your plan? And that right fit is different for everyone. Might be college, might be a 4-year college, 2-year college, military, a career field, or a combination. So it's really working with your students, and it starts freshman year. And we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to talk in a little bit about building that foundation with a transcript and with grades, but also when it comes to scheduling, what they might be thinking about. Now, that's not to say that today, March 8th, in 8th grade, they have to know exactly what they want to do. That's not it at all. And frankly, if your student has no clue, that's okay. But we are going to, starting as early as freshman year, start having these conversations and start pointing them in that direction. So when they graduate, have that diploma, they have a plan for what that next step is. So these are things that if they haven't started to think about, if they have, great. If they haven't, that's okay. We will start thinking about them. We'll start talking to your students a lot about all these options, providing them resources and working with them, to build that solid foundation next year as a freshman.
So we want to talk to you a little bit about probably a new phenomenon that some of you have, unless you've had a high school student with us before, when it comes to credits. So not just classes, but credits. So when students get to high school, their job is to earn credits. And we explained all of this to your children when we were with them in their classrooms. So, and we used the example of the social studies classes that they were in. And we went into their social studies class and we said, okay, well, what happens if you don't do well in a class? And from 7th grade, what happens in 8th grade? And what the typical answer is that you go into the 8th grade social studies class. Well, when we're talking about credits, these are requirements that the state of Ohio has established, and also our local school district, to ensure proper high school graduation, to fulfill the requirements of a diploma. So these credits are listed here, and we went over these with your students. So what our school district requires, and then also our minimum for the state of Ohio, are listed here. They're also listed in the curriculum guide that Mr. McCann emailed you as well. So just to go over them real quickly, it's 21 credits to graduate, and that's throughout all 4 years of high school. So this is not something that your students have to fulfill all freshman year. This is something that they work on all throughout their high school career. So 4 credits of English and 4 credits of math. So you can expect your students will take English and math all 4 years. Between science and social studies, they need 7 credits. So it can be 3 of one and 4 of the other. But for the most part, most of our students take 4 of each of those. So they'll take a science and a social studies pretty much every year. So they'll go above and beyond, which is great. And that's exactly what we encourage too. For health and physical education, they'll take a course in health that will fulfill half of a credit. And also for physical education, they'll take 2 courses because each are worth 1/4 of a credit. So they'll need a half a credit total in PE. There's a financial literacy component to high school graduation as well. So that course is worth a half a credit. So they will get that at some point throughout high school. Fine arts, which is a full credit of that. And then their remaining electives. So for a full total of 21, that is the breakdown that we're looking at. So those are the credits that, again, are listed in the curriculum guide for you to go back to as well. So our primary, there's a few components towards high school graduation. Credits are just one, and those are the things that we work with your student on each year to make sure they have what they need coming up. And we also ask that they keep track of those as they go through high school as well, because these are their courses. But in addition to that, we also have some testing requirements. So for students in the class of 2025, they need 2 competency scores or passing scores on 2 end of course exams. And your students might know these. You might know these as AIR tests. And we call those end of course exams up here at the high school. Algebra 1 and English 10. So at the end of those courses, your students will take an end of course exam. And if they achieve a score of 684 or higher, they've earned that competency score and they are good to go. In addition to those 2 exams, they also have to earn SEALs, certified by the state of Ohio, and they can earn up to 12 SEALs, but they have to earn a minimum of 2 SEALs in order to graduate. Those are also all spelled out in the curriculum guide. If students are not able to earn that passing score, that competency score of 684, then there are alternative methods to reaching graduation that are listed there on the slide. And we work with students throughout high school if that is their situation. So after English 10 or after the completion of English 10, we really work with our juniors and seniors to evaluate where they are in that process to make sure that they are on track for graduation, whether it is reaching the primary method of graduation or the alternative method of graduation. So this is just another look of our SEALs. The ones that have the white background are the state of Ohio SEALs that the state of Ohio has determined the criteria for. And then the ones with the dark blue background are our local SEALs, which students need to earn at least 1 of those. So out of their 2. And those were adopted by our school board to so that students could achieve those towards graduation. And some additional testing information. So we talked about the state test for that Algebra 1 and English 10 or English 2. They also have additional testing requirements. So these do not go towards high school graduation, but they are assessed in biology, geometry, US history, and government. So you can expect your students when they're in those courses to be taking an end of course exam for the state of Ohio. So they do have to sit for those, but their competency score is not included in their high school graduation. Likewise, you're probably familiar that your 8th grader took the PSAT 8-9 this past year. So we give our sophomores an additional opportunity to take the PSAT for free. And it gives us another measure on how they're doing and their college readiness. So it helps our students because it gives them a measure of where they're at right then, a snapshot in time, but it also gives our staff, our teachers, our administrators a look at how our students are doing and how we can help them achieve what they want to do and where they want to go. So again, back to that fit and plan. So we think that that's a big component of just ensuring and helping their success. So you can count on your students when they're sophomores to take the PSAT. And then at the end of their junior year, they sit for the SAT, and that's also for free. So the state of Ohio gives school districts the opportunity to administer a college entrance exam. So we administer the SAT in April of students' junior year. And so they can leave their junior year with a college entrance exam score.
And one last point too, in regards to the flow as far as these are concerned. The reason why they're listed under freshman, sophomore, junior years, because that's when typically most of these students will take these tests. Like for example, if your child is already taking Algebra 1 this year as an 8th grader, they're going to take the Algebra 1 end of course exam this year, which means they might take the geometry exam their sophomore year. We have some students who next year will take the biology exam next year as a freshman as well. So while this isn't set in stone, this is what the vast majority of our students, what their timeline is going to look like as far as the end of course exams are concerned. And like Ms. Simmons already said, All of our students will take the PSAT as sophomores. All of our students will take the SAT as juniors. So now the next thing we're going to talk about is looking at our core course flows. So we're not going to talk a whole lot about electives this year. Tonight, but we are going to talk about our core courses and kind of what that looks like, what our students are going to be looking at taking next year as far as our 4 cores, but then also what they might look like, their sophomore, junior, and senior years as well.
So I know this is really, really difficult to see, and by no means do you need to study it or know specifically what it says. However, we did want to introduce, and we introduced to your students when we were in their social studies class, that this is a transcript. And what a transcript is, it is your student academically on paper. It includes their grades, their test scores, and their attendance. That's it. And background information. This is something that the military, many employers, and then certainly colleges look at when making decisions on admitting students, scholarship money, and hiring students. And why we pointed this out in talking about getting off, to go back to what I said earlier, getting off to a strong start. This student has, at the top, they have a grade from middle school where they took Algebra 1, counts for high school credit. And then it has their freshman, sophomore, and junior grades. So this would be a transcript for a senior in the fall of their senior year. That's the time when a lot of our military recruiters are coming in, and also that's the prime time when students are applying to college. So the grades that a student has freshman year count the same as it is their junior year. What we told your students is this is not to say they have to be perfect. This is not to try to scare them or make everything out to be a bigger deal than it is, but it is important to build that strong foundation for their high school career academically with how they perform in 9th grade, because the truth is how they perform in 9th grade is going to set them up for success, or potentially things did not go so well if it's not really up to the level that they are capable of. So again, you don't have to fully know what a transcript is. Your students and you will become much, much more familiar with it as time passes. But we did want to stress them that, hey, this is something that a college, an employer, or the military would see, that has how you performed academically freshman year and then all the other years as well.
So one of the questions that we had on the chat was if SAT scores are on there. And so, yeah, that picture was taken before our state assessed SAT. So yes, college entrance exams are listed on the transcript. So, so anytime your student, even if they take it more than once, all of those tests are on there, just like their end of course exam scores as well. And so those will change a little bit too, as the state has continuously been changing the graduation requirements. But your students, Algebra 1 and ELA 2, that English 10 test, would be on their final year transcript along with their college entrance exams.
So this is a hypothetical schedule of a freshman. There's 7 periods in the day for high school, as well as an intervention period, which is their home base for approximately 20 minutes. So if you count for their 4 core classes, and you see on there the physical science, the world history, the algebra 1 through 3, and then English 9 is listed 6 period. And again, it's not necessarily in this order. Then another period would be their health and their phys ed. Those are graduation requirements, as Mrs. Simmons mentioned. And we operate in semester classes. We don't have 9 weeks courses. So, you would have the first half of the year, first day of school up through winter break, hypothetically health. You come back from winter break through the end of the year is your PE. So that's slotted in there right now at 4th period. That leaves room for 2 periods worth of electives. And that's where those course request sheets come in that we've shared with you. Now, if you look at the curriculum guide, and one of the common things that happens with freshmen is they get really excited when they see all the electives, and that's great. We want them to be excited, and there are a lot of options. Unfortunately, a lot with freshman year is getting some of those requirements out of the way. The health and the PE we get out of the way. One, if your student is going to potentially attend Maplewood Career Center, they have to have those complete because Maplewood doesn't offer that. Second, as you get further along in your high school career, there's way more options for electives. So when you have those more options, we want upper class students to have more room in their schedule just because there's more that is available for them to take. So this student hypothetically had room 2 periods, which comes down to 2 credits for electives. Spanish is a year-long class, so that would be 1 credit. And then if you look 7th period, the art and the journalism each would be half a credit, and that's those semester classes that I mentioned prior. Again, not that your student has to take Spanish or has to take art or journalism. That's just an example. We told the students this, and I truly believe this, or not believe it, this is what happens with students. By the time your student is a senior, they will have had the opportunity to take really any elective they want. We don't run into seniors who say, well, I never was able to fit anything in, because as you get to sophomore year, you have room for 2.5 credits worth of electives. Junior year, 3, maybe 3.5. Senior year, room for 3 credits worth of electives, sometimes 4. So there's plenty of opportunity. You're just not able to take all the electives freshman year. It is somewhat a limiting schedule, but trust us, if there's any students on here, you'll thank us that health and PE are out of the way. And then as you progress, you are able to take many, many more of the elective courses. One other thing to mention when it comes to that, if you see 5th period has A, B, and C lunch, lunches are not by grade level, and it's based on the student's 5th period class. So their class would all go to lunch at the same time. So, one of the popular questions we get early in the year from students is, oh, can I change my lunch? We don't have the ability to do that because it's based on what their 5th period class is when they have lunch, either A, and then they'd have, say, Spanish, B, which falls in the middle of 5th period, or C, which they would have 5th period, A and B, and then go to lunch C. I know I kind of said that quickly. It'll make sense immediately after the first day, but I know that does sound a little confusing.
So Mr. Campbell just mentioned some of those electives, and you'll see when you go through that curriculum guide, you'll see all of the elective choices. That guide is all the classes that we offer at Streetsboro. So you're going to see a lot of really cool things where you're like, oh, I wish my student could take this, or they're going to be really excited to take something like that. But just to echo what Mr. Campbell said, they will have that opportunity throughout high school to pick up some of those classes that they really want. And Mr. McCann mentioned this before about the different levels of classes and the different opportunities that students have to challenge themselves. So we put this in the curriculum guide just to help guide you. Again, this is not something that is set in stone that you have to be in one of these columns, or that it has to be all, college prep classes, or it has to be all honors classes. We really do work hard. Going back to that fit and plan that Mr. Campbell was talking about, we work hard to help, give your students the courses that are most challenging for them. So if that does happen to be all honors courses and all of the core subject areas, then that's awesome. If that happens to be some honors courses and some college prep courses, great. If that's college prep courses, wonderful. So we do try very, very hard to get students absolutely what they need, but then also what they want at the same time. So we've, in each of our core areas, this one is English. We have the 9th, 10th, and 11th grade levels just here for your reference. In the next slide, we have math, which goes through, our students who are in Algebra 1 now in 8th grade, how they would go into honors geometry, and our students that are in Math 8 will start off in Algebra 1 and how that progression goes. The next is science with Some of our students who are in Accelerated Science 8, some of those students will go into honors biology. And the rest of the students will go into physical science, which is our college prep 9th grade science class. And then for social studies, all of our students will start out with world history, and we do have an honors level of that. Throughout this process, though, we rely on some different data points to help guide us for students who are ready for that challenging curriculum. So for the 9th grade level, for those honors courses that you just saw on the previous screens. So we use their PSAT 8 scores as a really good source of information. We also use maybe some of their classroom assessments, maybe some writing samples, things that were pretty important that they've done this year that their 8th grade teacher can share with our staff here. In the past, we've used our end of course exams. So those air tests that they will likely take in the spring here, we may use those as well. But we also understand that, you know, those data points don't always share the entire story. So especially this year. So we do rely on our staff at the middle school to help share what they know about your students, how they perform academically in the classroom, their dedication to their schoolwork, because we want to set your students up for success. You know, it is a big leap. Just as if you had a student coming up from DEFR to the middle school, you probably noticed, and they probably noticed too, because they told us, the increased workload that they had in the middle school. They might have had more homework, the expectations were higher. That just grows when they get into high school. So those more challenging classes, those honors classes, are really something that we take a lot of time to place students appropriately to make sure that they are set up for success. So what you can expect from an honors course is that your student needs to be definitely self-motivated, finding those answers to questions on their own, participating in class, completing you know, some full assessments, long-term assignments, about 15 hours of homework or study time per week, which sounds like a lot, or maybe it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you put it against, you know, any sports that they're in or extracurricular activities, that can be a lot. That can be a really big course load. So again, we sort of, you know, if your students are in a situation where they need to mix and match those more competitive, the more challenging courses with classes that are college prep level, then we try to do that for your students so that they have the most challenging coursework possible for them. So on that other side of it, we're expecting about 7 to 10 hours of homework a week for those college prep courses. So a traditional 9th grade schedule, they're going to have homework. They might have some courses that have daily homework. So we really try to cultivate their motivation and their willingness to, you know, just be part of their educational process. We really do take a lot of time to work with them on that. So foreign language isn't something that we mentioned earlier, except for the fact that it was an elective, but you may have noticed that it's not on the graduation requirement sheet. And that's because in the state of Ohio, foreign language is not a graduation requirement. And at Streetsboro High School, it is not an extra course added on. So it's not a requirement for high school graduation. However, it is a course that is recommended by colleges. In fact, 2 years or 2 units of a foreign language is recommended for college. So if your students are college bound, or if they're thinking about college after high school, they will want to take 2 years of a foreign language, and that's 2 years of the same foreign language. So we offer French and Spanish at the high school, and they can start off 9th grade by taking a foreign language. If their language skills in the English language are on point, you know, they know their parts of speech, they're comfortable with grammar, they might be able to take on, you know, that different language, because a lot of what Spanish and French 1 and 2 are is learning the language, learning grammar, learning parts of speech, putting it all together. So we want students to be comfortable in English in order to be able to be successful as a ninth grader in a foreign language. Now, if your student's not as comfortable in that, there's no reason that they have to take it in ninth grade. They can start maybe in 10th grade or 11th grade. But we do offer the 4 levels. So if that's important to your student to get 4 years of a foreign language, they'll want to request a foreign language right away so they can get started on that.
So next, we're going to talk about athletic offerings and club offerings. We're not going to get so much into club offerings. One of the points that was emailed to all of you, in addition to the curriculum guide and the course selection sheet and the link to this presentation, is a document that contains all of the clubs that we have at SHS. So you can take a look at that with your son or daughter at any point. We highly encourage getting involved with clubs and extracurriculars. The research is through the roof that the more kids feel connected to their school, the more that kids are engaged, the better they're going to do, not only socially and emotionally, but academically as well. It teaches time management, it teaches organization. So it's an invaluable tool. So I would encourage you to really sit down with your kids and find a club or a sport that, again, goes along with, a long-term plan or what might be a great fit, and encourage them to really get involved. But as far as athletic offerings, Ms. Taylor's going to talk to us a little bit about that now.
All right, so in the fall, you have football, cross country, golf, boys and girls, soccer, boys and girls, and volleyball, as well as cheerleading for football. In the winter, you have wrestling, boys and girls basketball. And then in the spring, you have baseball, softball, and track and field. And those are the ones we offer here at Streetsboro. And the eligibility, according to OHSAA, you have to have a 1.5 GPA from the previous and the current quarter. This means that fall eligibility will be based off the fourth quarter. So the fourth quarter coming up here, starting March 15th. I believe you guys end the fourth quarter on Friday as well. So next Monday we'll start the fourth quarter. And that'll be eligibility plus the current one that you are in. Once again, this is based off fourth quarter. PE classes do not count as one of the 5 credits. So you have to be passing 5 credits.
If I could just piggyback on that. So the 5 credits, if there's a class that's an elective that's half a credit, or a core class that's half a credit for that matter, there aren't many, but that would count as a full credit. They multiply for 2 by those. So PE doesn't count, but really any of the other classes would count for those 5 credits, because I know we talked about credits prior, but the half credit courses do count for the 5. And if you have any further questions or details on that, just, give us a call and we can explain it more in detail.
So lastly, we're just going to talk about the timeline moving forward, what it's going to look like, both in the very short term, but then also the long term as we move forward into your child's freshman year. So now through March 11th, if you have not submitted those course selection sheets, I really encourage you to sit down with your child and really go through and talk about what you feel is the best fit for them moving forward into the high school. You'll notice on some of those course selections, for example, honors classes are not necessarily on there. Just for whatever their cores are, just go through and fill those out. And the reason for that is, as Ms. Simmons alluded to earlier, in addition to just kind of want and desire, we do look at a lot of data points, because one of the things that we try to do as far as their freshman year is concerned is we want the kids to challenge themselves, and at the same time we want them to be in a position where they're going to be successful. If again, going back to the research and the studying, if students who fail multiple classes their freshman year of high school, they go down a very it's not a good path as far as graduation is concerned. So we want to make sure that our students are put in the best position to succeed. So make sure you're having those honest conversations with your kids. If you do have questions about what you feel might be the best fit for your child, I would encourage you to reach out to their teachers, but more importantly, I would encourage your children to reach out to their teachers as well, because one of the things that we really preach and encourage at the high school is starting to really self-advocate, and they can get a great start on that now. As far as getting involved and talking to their teachers about this. So March 11th, which is this coming Thursday, course selection sheets are due via Google Forms. So make sure that your son or daughter is filling that out. I put this in the chat earlier, but just to reiterate, in order to access those course selection sheets, your son or daughter has to be logged into their school account for privacy reasons. Outside entities, outside emails cannot access those forms. So make sure that you are logging in through your child's school account in order to access those forms. April 18th is our first day of school, and we do something pretty awesome at Streetsboro High School. Unfortunately, we're not able to do it this year, obviously with the pandemic, but with numbers and how things are going, we are, cautiously optimistic that we'll have a more regular start to the school year, hopefully. And one of the things that we do at the high school is Freshman Festival, which is basically the first day of school. Freshmen are the only students that come into the building that day. And our teachers and some of our student leaders will come in and they'll do some team building exercises and really kind of get them not only kind of used to the high school feel the first day of school, but they'll also try to get them excited as far as high school is concerned. And then the last date, as far as the timeline, is open house for high school. So that's going to be August 25th is going to be the day for open house for the high school. Again, our hope is that we're able to run that in person, and we just run kind of a bell schedule as I believe has been done in the middle school in past years. So that's all we have for the presentation. If you have any questions or concerns, you can feel free to email any of us now. If you do have any questions, you can throw them in the chat box. So far, we only have one question. And that first question is, do you offer any CCP courses on campus? Ms. Simmons or Mr. Campbell, I don't know if you guys want to answer that question.
Sure, yeah. We do not offer CCP courses at Streetsboro High School. So the only course that is slated to possibly offer some college credit would be the half credit music theory course, which typically freshmen do not take. Otherwise, we do not. We do offer AP, advanced placement courses, which are listed in the curriculum guide in, as of next year, 9 different subjects. So, and those students, those are equivalent to freshman level college curriculum, and students sit for the AP exam in May for those courses. So your students do have an opportunity if they would like to possibly earn some college credit while in high school, and they can be in the safety and security of our own faculty here, which is great. So we do offer opportunities for that just through AP here on our campus. I will say, just also going back to that freshman festival day, that's probably one of Mr. Campbell, not to speak for him, but one of our favorite days of the year because
one of my favorite days of the year, Mrs. Simmons.
Yes. Okay, good. Because that is
Truth.
Our freshmen really, I think they really appreciate it. They are very grateful at the end of that day to have had the opportunity to come into the building and have a fun day with us. We feed them breakfast and lunch and, do fun things with them. And they get to have the run of the building pretty much without upperclassmen. But they get to meet some of our upperclassmen, and it's a very controlled environment. They get to meet all of us, and it's welcoming and warming, and they really, really like it. So it really kicks off their high school experience pretty well. So just wanted to say that too, just to kind of get them pumped up. So you'll hear more about that in the summertime.
Mr. Campbell, is there anything you want to add in regards to Freshman Festival?
The feedback we get from the freshmen after the fact has been overwhelmingly positive. I'd say like almost 100% positive in that sense. Every now and again, maybe a few things you could tweak, but no, it's a huge, I think for a freshman walking into the high school, it's a huge relief knowing that it's just freshmen and it's going to be a very, very organized day where we're not just saying, hey, have at it, go follow your schedule, go figure out lunch. And it is a lot of fun. All kidding aside, it is one of my favorite days that we have in here. It's all downhill after that. I'm kidding. Totally kidding. We have a lot of good days, but that is something we started approximately 5 years ago, and it's been a really, really cool experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as far as any other questions, I don't see any other questions in the chat box. So that's going to kind of do it for us. I just want to just kind of say, would it be my first year at Streetsboro, and coming from a middle school for the past 4 years, I can tell you that our staff really does a great job as far as welcoming freshmen in and making them feel welcomed and feel at home. And I think we just do a great job as far as the nurturing piece is concerned. Mr. Campbell and Ms. Simmons play a huge role in that. Their doors are always open as far as any issues, because we know how difficult that transition is going from middle school to high school. It's, along with maybe that jump from 5th grade to 6th grade, that 8th, 9th grade jump is one of the most difficult years that the kids have. And our staff, from, our counselors to our teachers, even to our secretaries, just do an outstanding job as far as making sure that the kids really feel welcome from day one. And you can really feel that in our school. It's not a situation where freshmen come in and they feel that, they're the bottom of the totem pole. I mean, everyone really has an equal voice at Streetsboro High School. And I say that with 100% sincerity.
We are excited to welcome your students. It may not seem like it since we're on a Zoom call and we don't have you in front of us, but we are excited. Mr. Campbell and I were very impressed with all of your students when we were at the middle school. They were awesome for us, and we are very excited to welcome them in what's hopefully a normal school year next year.
And please, I know Mr. McCann already said this, please don't hesitate to reach out to us with questions. You might have a more individual based question or something that you didn't think to ask. We welcome that. Don't hesitate to email us, call us, and we want to, as Mrs. Simmons said, make this as smooth a transition for your student, and help ease your mind as a parent, because it is mildly nerve-wracking as a parent. Yep. I never realized that till this year.
So we did get one additional question talking about class sizes, and I'm going to try to answer that. But if anyone wants to jump in, feel free. But as far as our class sizes go, our class sizes at the high school are pretty good, as far as that we don't have a lot of classes that are, in the 30s or anything like that. I will say the class sizes do depend on the course, just because your core classes, you're going to tend to have a little more than maybe some of your elective classes. But I would say that most of our classes, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but most of our classes, and again, it's a little different because of the pandemic with some of our students virtual right now, but I would say they're probably in the 20 to 25 range. I mean, we have some classes that are in the teens. We have some classes that are, in the mid to high 20s, but our class sizes are very favorable by and large. And you can get a lot of, really one-on-one help as far as your teachers are concerned, because they're able to build that relationship, because our class sizes are not overwhelming by any stretch. All right, perfect. So that's all the questions that we have. Like we said before, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. Our emails were on the last slide of that presentation. Also in the email that went out, all 4 of our emails were on there. Once again, my name is Brett McCann, the principal. Ms. Taylor's our assistant principal. If you have any questions as far as students with the last names A through L, you can contact Mr. Campbell. Any students with the last names M through Z, you can contact Ms. Simmons. Thanks so much for joining us. And we're really looking forward to hopefully getting back to a year of normalcy and getting to welcome in our class of 2025. Thanks so much and have a great night.